We ain't going down till the sun comes up with Kent Blazy. Today on the Music Universe podcast.
Matt, are you tearing it up or burning it down?
I'm like ready to burn the house down and go outside and be outside after being inside for forever.
Yeah, that's great. So obviously we had an awesome chat with songwriter Kent Blazy.
Who is 1/3 of kind of the mega songwriting duo behind Garth's career, which includes Kent, the late Kim Williams, who, if I could ever interview a songwriter living or dead, it would be him.
Mm-hmm.
And
Rest
of
his
course,
soul.
of course, Garth input on everything. So this was just a thrill because not only did he talk about the songs he wrote, he talked about working with Kim. He gave us some insight on some stuff that Garth has recorded but hasn't released, and tearing it up and burning it down. And I won't spoil that story, but for all of those of you begging and who think that there's a studio recording out there somewhere, Kent puts that to bed. Okay,
Yes,
you'll
listen
get
to
your
it.
answer. So you're flipping out. I can see you're smiling. I could tell you're smiling from ear to ear.
You know, it's what I love about doing this, and I'm getting chills even saying this, and even teary-eyed a little bit. It's not necessarily who we talk to, it's about what they talk about too. And the fact that I love the behind the scenes stories about really all this stuff. And just to ask one question and then he gives you more than what you could even imagine, it really is just really awesome. And yes, I am smiling, and I'm being a big baby, as Garth would put it, because I'm teary-eyed, because it's just so emotional to hear the greatness that went behind these songs, and that the stories haven't been told.
No, 100%. And like I said to you right before we started, the Garth people are friends who are huge fans, who we go to concerts with, who
Mm-hmm.
we go to see him on television at studios when he comes to New York. They're going to love these stories. And I hope they're listening, and I'm going to make sure they see it. I'm going to send them to everybody. I'm going to send this to everybody individually because I believe it adds more to the story. And there's stuff he talked about that hasn't even been written in any of Garth's biographies. So here's Kent Blazy, one of my favorite songwriters ever, one of our favorite songwriters, speaking for me and Buddy. Kent Blazy, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
I am great. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Well, you have some of the best songs in music. It's fun, emotional. You run the gamut. Tell us to start. When did you know you wanted to be a songwriter, and how'd you get your start?
Well, it was interesting. I was born in Woodstock, New York,
Mm-hmm.
and so this was before the festival, of course, but it was a very artistic town at the time, and we would go to people's houses, and somebody would be a painter and be working on a big painting, or they'd be an author, and they'd say, "Hey, here's a book I wrote. Let me sign it for you." There were actors that came up there out from New York City, and so as a young age, I saw all these people doing these amazing things and making a living at it. And my dad worked at IBM, and he did it, but he did it more for the family. And he always kind of told me, do what you love. And so my sister was very artistic too, and so my parents encouraged that. So the first thing I did, I guess, was start writing poetry, and got some stuff in like high school magazines and stuff like that. And so once I got a guitar, I just thought, well, I'm going to put the lyrics that I'm writing, the poetry I'm writing, to music, and that kind of started it.
Wonderful. Now, do you remember your first big hit, the first thing that took off as your career progressed, the first song that you had success with?
Well, it was interesting. I had a couple local songs that did good in Lexington, Kentucky, where I was.
Mm-hmm.
My dad got transferred there with IBM, and so there were some groups that played my songs, and they got played on the radio. And because of that, some people from Nashville heard some of my songs, and they took this one group that was down took them to Nashville to record some of my stuff, and I met some people that way. So I ended up moving down to Nashville because of that. And the first song I had that was a big hit was a song called Headed for Heartache. And it went to, I think, number 5 on the country charts in 1981. So that was probably the biggest thing right off the bat.
Yeah, with Gary Morris. Yep.
Gary Morris, that's correct.
You've written 7 number ones with Garth, but you've got a slew of other artists as well besides Gary. You know, Diamond Rio, Patty Loveless, Chris Young, T. Graham Brown, who we've chatted with lately. What's that like to have a gamut of singers take your music and even write with them? What's that like to just have that kind of success as a songwriter in Nashville?
You know, at a time that I got there, it was kind of a wide open field. It's kind of shrunk a whole lot since then, but you know, you would just see people like T. Graham Brown. He was a demo singer for me, you know. Another guy was Billy Dean. He sang demos for me. Garth sang demos for me. In Nashville, if you're not a great songwriter or singer and just a songwriter, you try to get the best singers to sing your demos for you, so when you pitch them, they sound more like the record. And so that's how I met a lot of them back when I was coming up. Now it's kind of different thing. There's really not that many demo singers that go on to be big stars, but back then that was kind of how you worked your way up through the ranks. And so some of them, you know, you would write with, like Billy Dean, or with Garth, something like that, you know, and become friends, and you'd work together. And so there was a camaraderie there that I really don't see that much anymore in Nashville.
Yeah, and I know we've been chatting with a lot of people during the quarantine who have sought other ways to keep songwriting with people through Zoom or Skype or however. What's it like to actually be in a room with someone, and is that your favorite way to write?
Yeah, that's my favorite way. You know, there's an energy when you get 2 people together in a room, or 3 people, however many you want to do it, and you're bouncing ideas off each other. You can watch each other's expressions, see the body language, you know, watch what they're playing on guitar. And it just inspires you a lot more to me than doing something, you know, over a computer.
Have you tried these Zoom writes? Have you tried to do this digitally while we're all in isolation?
Yeah, you know, and it's okay. You know, it's better than, I guess, nothing. But, you know, I've really gotten into a thing the last 3 or 4 years of writing by myself a lot anyway. And I've got a lot of things that I want to say that people on Music Row don't really want to say. So I just find ideas that I like and write those. And then if I find some that I think will work with the people I work with that are more working on Music Row, then I'll save them for them. And when we get together, we'll toss those around and hopefully hit on a thing that we can write. And once you do that, either if you're writing on Zoom or if you're writing on FaceTime or whatever, it's still a little easier once you get the ball rolling. But it's just, you know, it's kind of that artificial thing compared to the real thing to me.
Now, you just said something interesting. You have a lot you want to say that people on Music Row don't necessarily want to say. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, if you listen to what's really been on the charts on country radio for like the last 10 years, it's kind of that real country thing. And it's more like, you know, let's go drink whiskey and get in the truck and go out to the bonfire down a dirt road and a lot of that stuff. And, you know, there's a whole group of people that's how they grew up and that's what they relate to, but that's not me. So a lot of stuff I write is, I like to write a lot of songs about people that have influenced me, like Merle Haggard, Bob Dylan, Don Williams, you know, singer-songwriters like even Stevens. They all have these amazing stories. And so I kind of turn those stories into songs where people can appreciate what those people did, because now it's such a quick turnover. You can be hot one day and gone the next, and a lot of people don't remember who were the people that laid the groundwork for the people that are there now. And so I like to remember them in songs, and when I'm doing singer-songwriter shows, I'll talk about these people that influenced me and let people know that they were viable and still are viable as a singer, songwriter, or artist.
Yeah, that's fantastic because you're right. A lot of that country has gone bro, and I think it's starting to get back to more storytelling. Have has this COVID-19 quarantine inspired anything from you?
Well, right away, I wrote a song called Crazy Times. And it was kind of taking a look at everything that was going on, which we've never seen before in our lifetime. But also, we are all in this together. And if we do what we can, we'll all get through this together. And I think there's a coming together, kind of like there was after the 911 thing, where people are more understanding of each other now than they were before. And that's a good thing. And that's going to show up in songwriting. And I think, like you said, I think this is going to change the songwriting. People are going to be looking for something more meaningful, deeper than what's been on the radio lately to get them through this.
Right.
Now, you said you're from Woodstock, New York, which I never knew. Why country music? Somebody from, the Northeast, that's you don't make that connection immediately. Why country music for you for your songwriting?
Well, so my dad worked for IBM, which at the time IBM meant I've been moved. They like to move people around. So I ended up in Lexington, Kentucky. And, believe it or not, upstate New York has had a lot of people that love country music. If you were in a bar or whatever, they were playing country music. They were playing Buck Owens and Merle Haggard and stuff like that. But when I got to Kentucky, it was a lot more country music, a lot of bluegrass music. Amazing bluegrass players came out of there, like Ricky Skaggs was in Lexington, and Tony Rice and Keith Whitley and some people like that. And so there was that influence. But what happens was some of the bands that I really liked in the late 60s were moving more into country rock, like the Byrds and Buffalo Springfield, Poco. And then the Eagles came along and they kind of took it to another level. And so I kind of grown up on, Jimi Hendrix and Eric Clapton and Beatles and stuff like that. But the Beatles even did, country music when you listen back to it, like a Buck Owens song, Act Naturally, they did that. So it was kind of like they were willing to, and so were some of these other groups, meld country and rock together. And that really resonated with me. And I think part of it was because, Dylan was kind of doing the same thing. He came to Nashville and did 3 or 4 albums that were huge albums that he recorded with Nashville studio musicians. And that opened up the door for McCartney to come in and do some records here, and a whole bunch of other people that had never thought about coming to Nashville to record again. So when it came time for me to make a move, I had considered LA being more of a rock guy, but then Nashville was 4 hours from where I was from. I needed to get home to. I liked the music that was coming out of Nashville. So that's kind of how I moved to Nashville and became more of a country writer than a rock writer, I guess.
Yeah, and that rock definitely is apparent in your songwriting, like Ain't Going Down Till the Sun Comes Up. Beer Run's not
Right.
quite as rocking, but tell me how, when you guys write these songs, do you have the idea of, especially for Ain't Going Down, is that like, when you put that together, is that like, man, this has to be a really rockin' type thing, or does that kind of come together later in the studio?
Well, the cool thing with Garth is a lot of times he'll come in and he'll know exactly what he wants. And we were very fortunate on that one where he called me up one day and he said, I want to write a song with Machine Gun lyrics. And he wanted me to call Kim Williams because we've been writing together a lot, had some pretty good success. And so when Garth came over, basically what he said is, I want to write the first single for my next album, and it really has to be up-tempo. It has to be fun. So we had this whole criteria. And so that's what we did. We just focused on that. We had a great time writing that song. We just laughed and, just had a good time doing it. And then when we got done, he wanted a little work tape of it to show his producer. And so I had just moved into this house that needed a lot of work, so I had a studio, but not a lot of it was set up. So we just did a little work tape of a drum machine, me playing guitar, and Garth singing. And I swear that little demo became what ended up being the song on the radio. When you listen to his demo of that song, it's just mind-boggling how good it was just after walking in the room after writing the song and putting it down.
Wow, that's awesome.
Now, this just occurred to me because the stuff, especially with with the stuff you've done for Garth and the way Garth works as a whole, a lot of his album stuff, it's very similar but different than what you hear live. Are you, as a songwriter, involved in arranging a song for a record, a studio record, and then those little bits and differences of arrangement for live? Do you get any input, or does he just do that with the band?
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to the work tape of If Tomorrow Never Comes that he's made available, I think on the last thing he put out, and you compare it to the studio demo, it's a lot alike. It's just embellished with the studio. And the thing that's so cool about the Nashville musicians, and especially Garth and his musicians, he's pretty much used the same people all through the years. He's a very loyal guy. And so they just kind of know how to embellish what he's doing. And a lot of the songs, like especially on the first few albums, like The Dance and If Tomorrow Never Comes and Friends in Low Places, the demo, even the work tape that people did on those songs, the band just basically embellished it. They didn't try to overplay or change anything. And it was kind of the same thing on Ain't Going Down. They're just all great players. They're so intuitive that they get out of the way of the song, but they add licks that turn the song into something so much bigger than it was just with the guitar and a vocal.
A song that comes to mind that we'd love to hear a studio version of, but haven't yet, is "Tearing It Up and Burning It Down" from his double live record. How much involved of that were you writing that? Because it seemed like that might have been, I believe, put together for the Ireland shows.
Well, and that's basically true. There really isn't a work tape of that song because what happened was he knew once again what he wanted for the Ireland show, and he wanted that song. He already kind of had it in his head how he wanted it to feel. And so at that time, he was so busy that we got together maybe one time with Kim Williams, and we started working on it. And he was so busy that what we ended up doing for probably 6 months or whatever is faxing the lyrics updated back and forth to him wherever he was. And I mean, he went into the studio that day and we were still faxing lyrics back and forth to each other on what the lyrics should be. So it was a very interesting thing. He knew what he wanted and he knew the feel he wanted, and we had that, but it was just getting the lyrics to go with the feel of it. So that's probably one of the few that never had a work tape because we never could get together to do a work tape of it.
But there is a studio. He went in to the studio to do it?
No, there's no studio version of it. That's all there is. The live version from Ireland's the version.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
I know, pretty wild.
Wild.
It's a great
Wild.
song.
I'm glad he released it. So, great song.
Fun thing for me is I got to go over there. I knew he was going to do that. And so I went over there and went to the show and got to hear, the audience. I'd never been to another country to hear Garth. And, of course, the Irish people, he's like the Beatles over there,
Yeah.
But, to hear Tearing It Up done with the whole audience clapping along and the whole bit, it was just mind-boggling. But then even like to hear, they were one of the first places I ever went where If Tomorrow Never Comes, they would sing the whole thing, or The Dance, or The River, and so for me, some of them weren't my songs, but I was crying because here I am in another country and these people know our songs like people do in America. It was very touching. It's very moving.
Well, it begs the question with Tearing It Up. Did you ever find out why he wanted to do? He's never done that before or since, where there was a song he was never going to release that was for a special concert event, and it wasn't even. He didn't even go on to talk about how he only really did it for Ireland. Maybe he's mentioned it once or twice, but on a songwriting level, was the why of that whole song never explained to you? Why it was going to be the way that it was?
Oh, I mean, he did explain it to me. He said, this is going to be a song that when we go to Ireland, it's going to be one of the main songs that we're going to do. And I mean, he kind of said that with Ain't Going Down, but then it took on a life of its own. He said, this is a song that I want to be the next single off my record, and I want to play it when I'm in Dallas, and I'm going to fly across the stadium. And, Kim and I are looking at him like he's lost his mind. But that's what he ended up, And I mean, when we went to Dallas, and we thought he lost his mind when he went flying across the stage, But, we kind of knew going in that it may never be anything but that thing for Ireland. But it was just so cool that that's what it was, that, it never occurred to me it could be a single or be on another album. But for him, it was just all about that live event. But I'm glad you guys love that song. That means a lot to me.
Well, it does. And it's funny, your Wikipedia, just so you're aware of weirdness here, the song's not on your wiki. There's a whole list of all the songs you've done. That's not on there. But when I searched your name in iTunes, that song came up. So that's the only reason I know you did that song, is because it's in the metadata for the iTunes. I didn't actually know who wrote that. There's not a lot out there about the lineage of that song. So it's so cool to hear the stories.
Well, go into Wikipedia and put my name and Ken Williams on there.
I will.
I never look at anything like that. So, I mean, I don't know. I just create them and go on. But, I mean, I always love credit where somebody wants to give me credit, even if I didn't do it.
Well, I have to say, my favorite song of yours is a deep cut off of a Garth album. And it's so not a Garth song, but he did it and he made it his own. It's Midnight Cinderella. What is the story there? Because that is so tongue-in-cheek and so awesome.
That was so funny because that was another project, I believe. Was that off the Fresh Horses album?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So that was another period of time where he was so busy. I think we had to get together like 6 o'clock in the morning, he and I and Kim, to work on that one and Cowboys and Angels. And Garth is really an interesting character because you could be working on one song with him and you'll take a little break and he'll be in the corner and he'll be singing something different that has nothing to do with what you're doing. And all I heard one morning was Midnight Cinderella, don't you worry none. And I said, what is that? And he said, I don't know. I've been kind of working on a song for my kids, kind of a Disney thing. I think he may have been working with Disney at the time. And so I said, well, I love that idea, And so we just kind of wrote it. I don't want to say it's a joke, but, we just did it as a laugh. And, and, we didn't ever expect it would be on a record, for one thing. It was just something we thought, well, maybe he's going to play it for his kids or something like that. And then the next thing we knew, it's on the record, and we thought, well, that's crazy, And then it started just getting people requesting it so much that he made it a single. And trust me, we never in our wildest dreams thought it was going to be a single. But, it's one of those things where you had fun and you laughed, so you laughed all the way to the bank.
Yeah, that's a great song.
Amen.
Now, I know in 2015 you released an album called Me and Garth. A couple of these songs I'm not recognizing as Garth songs, like Slow Down and The Only Good Years. Are these songs that you guys did write together but just haven't been released that you put out?
Well, the interesting thing about Slow Down is in the period of time where he was getting ready to do this album, before he called us up about Ain't Going Down, we were getting together to write. And Kim Williams came in with this idea because Garth at the time was running so fast that you couldn't get him to slow down for anything, you know. So Tim and I had kind of started this song called Slow Down. And so when Garth came in, he loved the idea and he worked on it. And we thought he would cut it, you know. And so right after that, we wrote Ain't Going Down. And Kim Williams said to him, well, are you going to cut Slow Down? He said, I can't slow down enough to do Slow Down. So the cool thing that happened on that is Chris Ledoux cut that song, which, you know, Garth was a huge Chris Ledoux song. So it was an honor for all of us that Chris cut the song. And, you know, so I think once Chris cut it, Garth would never cut it.
Yeah.
So it's one of my favorite songs because Kim Williams, such a great writer and stuff, but he had been burned over 90% of his body and had been in the hospital with 100 operations for like a year and a half. And then he decided to move to Nashville to be a songwriter. But if you listen to the second verse of Slow Down, it's talking about kind of Kim saying about being burned up and changing what you did and all that. So that one means a lot to me. Then the other funny thing was on The Only Good Years is a song that Garth and Kim and I were together one day, and it was probably around the period of Cowboys and Angels and Midnight Cinderella. And Garth came in one day and he said, I've got this song that I love, but I don't know I don't understand the title of it. And so Kim said, well, you know, play it. So he had a CD of it and he put the CD in and he's playing it. And about, you know, 30 seconds into it, I realized it was a song I wrote because I was writing a whole lot of songs at the time. And I thought, well, hell, I can't say anything about this song when it's done, you know, because I wrote it. I can't say anything about it. So Kim, bless his heart, when it was done, he said, Garth, how could you be so stupid and not understand what the title is? And I just kind of, I never said anything, you know, I just sat there and I was going, oh my God. And so Garth kind of looked at Kim. He gave him this funny look that I hadn't really seen very often, but he went in that day and he recorded the song and he did an incredible job on it. He kind of changed it from the way me and the writers had demoed it, but he cut it. But then I don't know if he thought it would make Sandy look bad, you know, because they'd gone through their thing or whatever. But, you know, I've got a version of him doing it, but it's never made a record. So maybe sooner or later it'll come out. But it's in the vault.
That is awesome. I'm sure he's got a lot in there. We're hoping someday it'll be released. And I know in 2018 you released an album called Songwriter. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, that's one of those things like I was talking to you about where the last 3 or 4 records I've written probably most of the stuff by myself. And it was just because there's things that I want to say that, you know, Music Road really doesn't care about. And so I've got songs on there that really mean a lot to me about people, you know, that I love and people that I've dealt with and kind of what I've been through. And the Bluebird had me do a thing. We do a live hospice thing every year for raising money for a live hospice in Nashville, Tennessee. And that year, Garth had come and played the show with me at the Bluebird. And so that picture that's on the cover, Songwriter, was taken at the Bluebird, kind of to do a promotion for them and a live hospice. And so that kind of inspired me to do the record named Songwriter because of that.
Oh, that is very sweet. And the year before that, in 2017, you released an album called 66, and that sounds like that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I try to get all the records to be, really, is fun, you know. Songwriter, I just had some of my favorite people in the world come in and play on it, you know, and like there was a song on there called Goodbye Tom Petty that, you know, everybody loved Tom Petty, and it was just, I was inspired to write it after he died. And then The Scar, that's a song about Townes Van Zandt and the influence that he had on everybody. And then Sing Me Home is interesting because Hank Cochran was probably one of the best songwriters there was in Nashville. And when he died, he went into hospice, and all his friends came to see him the day before he died, and they all sang his songs to him. And so that was an inspiration for that song. And so that's kind of how they happen. In '66, I just wanted to go in and kind of rock out a little bit. I'm really an electric guitar player more than anything else. You know, when you move to Nashville, they want you to kind of write songs on acoustic guitar, but I'm really a rock and roll guy at heart. I love to turn up a loud amp and play electric guitar. So that's kind of what I was aiming for on that record, was to get that feel across.
What song? I want to preface this question a little bit. I've been asking our songwriter guests this question because the first time I talked to Gary Burr and Georgia Middleman, Georgia said something. She offered it, I didn't ask, that her first hit with Keith Urban changed her life, gave her the financial security to be able to be a songwriter, to be an artist, and to do what she does. What is the song? Maybe it was the one we were talking about for Gary Morris, but what is the song that did that for you, that made this your career, set you up, that you could make a salary on this? What's the song that changed your life?
Well, I would have to say the song that changed my life and the song that I'd always prayed to write was If Tomorrow Never Comes. And, Headed for a Heartache, that helped. But back then, that was 1981. Songwriters didn't get paid very much back then. Country was not really very big. It opened some doors, but not a lot of doors because of that. But having If Tomorrow Never Comes, it really changed things because it won like the Nashville Songwriters Song of the Year. It was nominated for ACM and CMA, and it won some other awards. And, so it got my name out there a little more, and other artists were wanting to write with me. And then because of that, Garth turned to me every time he did an album, which, anymore, you can write a number one song with somebody and never hear from them again. But so I think that's the song that changed my life.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and just a timeless song, and definitely works in any situation for sure. Now, we're about to wrap here, but I know you mentioned Alive Hospice, and I wanted to touch on that because that holds dear to you. If you can just talk to us a little more about that.
Yeah, the Bluebird has been doing Alive Hospice shows for almost 30 years, where all the money in January that they make, all the musicians play for free. And then Bluebird donates all the money that they make, and it goes to Alive Hospice, and it's just a great organization. But I came to use it in 2008. My wife had been diagnosed with a brain tumor in 2004, and so in 2008 we kind of knew she was going to pass, and so for 6 months Alive Hospice came in and just really helped us get through the whole thing, and so that solidified it to me as far as the amazing people that they do. They're all kind of angels walking on earth, and I think that was one of the reasons Garth would come in and do the show with me when I asked him to do it for hospice.
Wow, that's amazing. That is just, thank you for sharing that. Truly, that's, there are angels, and my grandfather's on hospice right now, so 100% there with you. So we're about at time, but I have one last question for you. The question to kind of wrap this. To you, in your heart of hearts, in your opinion, what makes a good song?
Oh man, my criteria has always been touching people's hearts, and that could be either making them grateful for what they have, making them realize what they've lost, what they should have kept, making them laugh, anything that brings emotions. If you can bring happiness to people, if you can bring gratitude to people, you've written a good song. And that was the thing to me in the 90s. The songs that were on the radio back then compared to what's on the radio now, Those were the ones where you just had to pull over to the side of the road. Sometimes they were so good. And those are what I think are going to come back now that we've moved into kind of, to me, a new reality. And fluff isn't going to get it after what we've been through. And so it'll be interesting to see what people are writing and how things change because of this. But that to me is the criteria. When it makes somebody feel something that maybe they haven't felt before, or that they need to feel to pick them up or appreciate what they have, to me, that's a great song.
Well, you are the writer of so many great songs. Kent Blazy, what a fantastic time to speak with you. This was a privilege. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Well, I feel the same way with you guys. Thank you. Great
thank
interview, and it works both ways.
Okay, we got a little Garth centered on our intro, but Kent really, he holds his own. He's had hits across so many people, as you mentioned in that interview. But I think, and you could tell, he's extremely grateful to Garth for seeing him and kind of being his main champion in the 90s. But it's all Kent. It's not like Garth said, here, I'm going to make you a great songwriter. Garth just had a talent for finding damn good writers, and Kent is a damn good writer.
Oh, absolutely. And if you haven't, maybe you didn't know he had released any albums. I mean, they're out there. Go check them out on digital platforms. The Garth and Me one is very interesting because as we all talk about on there's a few on there that are Garth related, but not available by Garth. So be really awesome to dig into that vault and also see how many Kent has put aside too that we haven't heard yet. But a lot of great music out there, and Kent is behind much of that, and it was super awesome and a true pleasure to talk to him.
Yeah, I want to hear the song, the quarantine song that he wrote.
Yeah, it sounds fun. Sounds fun, just like his last album.
All right. Well, for the Music Universe podcast, I'm Matt.
And I'm Buddy. Thanks for listening, and keep checking out themusicuniverse.com.